All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Chase Robinson, looking at the South Carolina Gamecocks schedule for the 2025 college football season. Chase, we do this every year. We go through team schedules and try to pick out what looks good, what looks potentially bad, some of the wild card possibilities. South Carolina, immediately, I looked at their schedule and I'm like, oh, yeah, they got a schedule, did the Gamecocks. So Shane Beamer and company trying to keep their momentum rolling this season. They've got probably one of the more fascinating schedules, I think, in the SEC.
They do, yeah, and I'm interested to see how they navigate it. You mentioned momentum. I think that's a big word for South Carolina, based off of last year. Lenore Sellers is back. He's going to provide some momentum. They're replacing a lot of guys in some key positions, but I am interested to see how South Carolina navigates the schedule because they've got some tough ones on there. And but I think the Gamecocks are ready for it, Blake.
Well, we're going to find out, and we're going to pull up their schedule as it stands right now. South Carolina DraftKings, the over/under on regular season wins 7.5. The under minus 135 right now. The over plus 115. So, hey, if you think South Carolina confidently going over, you get a little money there at plus 115 odds. But let's take a look at their schedule because, you can maybe understand why, at least from the outside, that some people may look at this and say, well, this is exactly why South Carolina kind of may be at that number. So we start off here with the game against Virginia Tech. That one's going to take place in Atlanta, August 31st. That comes, day after the Tennessee-Syracuse game on August 30th. So that's a game that will have a nice little ESPN spot there in the afternoon on August 31st. Then we look at the game against South Carolina State at Williams-Brice on September 6th. Then they've got a string of SEC old SEC East foes, Chase.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, at Missouri, and Kentucky. So the early part of the schedule, I will say, South Carolina, as it stands, or at least this was as of about a week and a half ago, they were a 9.5-point favorite against Virginia Tech. I'll have to look to see if those odds have been updated. Can't imagine they've changed very much if they have, but almost a double-digit favorite against Virginia Tech. Then again, you get into that string of games against, these teams in Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Kentucky who are not going to be top 25 teams to start the season, but are all kind of fascinating in their own right.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm excited about the Beamer Bowl there with South Carolina and Virginia Tech. I think that's a really cool matchup there with Frank Beamer, longtime Virginia Tech head coach, and but yeah, this is not a schedule you can ease into. That'll be a tough one to start things off, and then like you mentioned, you got Vandy, Missouri, Kentucky, all there before you have an off week, and South Carolina State sandwiched in there in Williams-Brice Stadium. But the fact that you have Vanderbilt at home, I think, is big for South Carolina, and that was just it favored South Carolina in that matchup last year. Their defense was just too much for Diego Pavia to do anything on. And then you look at that Missouri matchup, and Missouri is one of those teams we're still trying to figure out. And then you get Kentucky in Columbia, South Carolina. So I think this first part of the schedule, the fact that they're able to play they're in Columbia 4 straight weeks, whether South Carolina or Missouri. But the fact that they have South Carolina State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky all at home, I think those are very good in that first part of the schedule. That's a tough place to play in Williams-Brice Stadium.
Yeah, it does seem like a very winnable road game at Missouri on September the 20th, and I think that's one where you would think this Missouri team's going to look a little bit different. It's not knocking Missouri, but I don't think it's going to be maybe the team of a couple years ago. I don't know if they're going to reach that level necessarily. And so this is an important stretch because why? Well, if we look on down, that's why, like, when we talk about important stretches for a team, I mean, you just go into this next group of 4 here. And, I mean, you can extend it into this game against A&M, of course, too. But, like, all right, after that, like you said, you get some of these games at home. I think it's fair to say South Carolina's probably the favorite in all those first 5 games. I think that's fair. I mean, I think at Missouri, they're probably still a favorite.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be the favorite in all those games, at least if we're looking at it from now. Now, if they lose against Virginia Tech, it changes a little bit. But let's say they're the favorite. Then is when things get interesting. They get the nice, I think you talk about having buys at the right time. in the perfect place to have kind of a bye for South Carolina on October 4th, because that's right when you now head into that big stretch of games where it's at LSU,
Yep.
home against Oklahoma, home against Alabama, at Ole Miss. And I mean, look, there's no doubt, like, mid-October to the early November is going to define South Carolina's season if they are going to hit over that 7.5 number. I mean, this is where it's going to happen. And of course, it's nice to have Alabama in Columbia. Nice to have Oklahoma in Columbia. Again, a team who we think will be significantly better. At LSU and at Ole Miss, I mean, the two SEC West foes, those are going to be tough road games where South Carolina is likely, you would think, an underdog in those. But yeah, I mean, that's where, the way you start the season really is a huge deal here, because if you get off to a good start, and let's say you are 5-0 coming in, even if you were to, let's say, drop the game at Missouri, there is room to at least have a spot in here where you're like, hey, we just didn't play our best that day. We lose one of these games. But if you're talking college football playoff, who was the team we were talking the most after the bracket came out last year and they were not in it, people were talking about South Carolina, and having an argument. But this will probably be the stretch that certainly defines that possibility for them.
Oh, it most certainly will. And you want to be 5-0 going into that off week, first weekend in October. And 4-1's okay, but I really think South Carolina can be and should be 5-0 going into that off week. And you get a chance to regroup before a really good LSU team. And South Carolina, bad taste in their mouth from LSU last year. They lost that game. They had it and lost it. So they want to win that one. They want to go down to Baton Rouge and make some noise down there at Tiger Stadium. And then, Oklahoma, you get that one at home. And I think a lot of South Carolina fans are circling an LSU game, but they're also circling that Alabama game of hosting the Tide in Columbia, South Carolina, because they had that one in Tuscaloosa last year, and they had the Tide on their heels and had chances to win. Alabama won that game, but South Carolina wants a shot again at the Crimson Tide, and they're going to get it on their home field in late October. And then, you mentioned going to Ole Miss, a team that was one of South Carolina's worst played games last year when Ole Miss beat South Carolina. They didn't play the part last year and didn't look very good in that game. So, those 4 games define the season, and you have 2 games in LSU and Alabama who were so close last year, and South Carolina had chances to win it, and you have that Ole Miss team last year that beat South Carolina pretty good. So those are 3 games, and then Oklahoma in there as well. There's history there with Shane Beamer. Those 4 games, they all have meaning, and they all come right there together. And so that's going to make for some really great football because, again, I think South Carolina will be competing in all 4 of those games. Whether they win all 4 of them or not, they're going to be in them, I really feel like.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, so important to get off to that 5-0 start. If you slip up somewhere early, I mean, even if it's losing at Missouri, I mean, that does put a bit more pressure on you, and to where we know in this league things can go south in a hurry. They can also go north in a hurry, as we've seen with South Carolina, but it can't be a league where it's like you lose one, don't let it turn into 2 and so forth, especially with a schedule like this. That's a daunting stretch with that group of opponents there, looking at it from that standpoint. All right, and then we get to the final 3 games. We said nice to have a week off after that 4-game stretch. And then go to Texas A&M, which is another team, certainly high expectations. We've already done a video this offseason talking about their offensive capabilities. That's a team that certainly has a lot at their disposal from a weapon standpoint. Coastal Carolina, back-to-back bowl games for Coastal Carolina. Tim Beck, who took over from Jamie Chadwell a couple years ago before he went to Liberty. 6 and 7 last year, so not quite maybe where they wanted to be, but still, they'll play Coastal Carolina November 22nd before getting Clemson at home. And as we know, Clemson expected to be one of the national title favorites heading into this season.
Yeah, you mentioned that off week comes at an excellent time after Ole Miss, right before A&M. You have to go to College Station, tough place to play. And then, you wrap up with Clemson, who, again, a lot of folks are expecting them to be really good this year. And obviously they won the ACC last year, lost first round of the playoffs, but it'll be a good Clemson team, and that'll be a good game, just like we saw last year between these 2 teams. But, at this point, I think South Carolina could very well be in a position where, again, they're in the talks for a playoff spot. That they're in contention to be in the top 12, and so. But again, it all depends on that. We say 4-game stretch. I'll say 5-game stretch because that A&M game is big too, even with an off week. Those 5 games right there in the middle of the year will definitely define South Carolina. But again, they have the potential to do some pretty big things this year.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking ahead and thinking, okay, let's say they start 5-0. And you're thinking about what are the, what will the spreads be for the rest of their games if you say they start 5-0. And I'm thinking like I can't imagine there's a game on the schedule anywhere where it's more than like a touchdown. I mean, even at LSU, if they're 5-0 going into LSU, I would think it's still about that number. Maybe it's a little higher, depending on how well LSU's played to that point. Even the Oklahoma, Alabama games, I know it's Alabama, but again, I would think that's probably at most, knowing that's a road game for the Tide, maybe a touchdown type game. At Ole Miss, I wouldn't think would be higher than that. At A&M, think the same thing. Now, Clemson, listen, if Clemson's unbeaten or something on November 29th, South Carolina's lost, 3 games or something, maybe it is a little more than 7. But yeah, so it does feel like you've got a lot of those for South Carolina, especially like, we identify the swing games. I was like, there's half a schedule of swing games here for South Carolina when it comes to possibilities.
No, there is. And it's a difficult schedule. I think South Carolina can navigate it though. But yeah, that first part, you have to take advantage of the first part. We keep going back to the first part of the schedule. Take advantage of that and then let the games come to you. If you have a strong start, you have room to breathe, you have room to work with. And I think it falls, while it is a difficult schedule, I feel like it does fall, into South Carolina's hands a little bit if you can do well in that first part. And that, again, gives you room to say, hey, let's take a deep breath. Let's knock these things out.
Yep. So we'll see how the Gamecocks sort of navigate that when it comes to, again, the schedule for the 2025 season. I think probably when we go through all these, we're probably going to look up, I would say, and be like, yep, that's one of your, kind of tougher schedules. I think I'm looking now, College Football News did their, I think, rankings of the top schedules. I think South Carolina had a top 10 schedule, had them at 9, it looks like, here, which would not be the toughest in the SEC. You're going to be shocked to know that probably also belongs to Florida again. It's always the Gators. But, yeah, at least looking at it right now, it does seem like that is going to be one potentially where South Carolina will finish with a top 10 schedule. And wouldn't be surprised at that at all. So, all right, there you go. Our thoughts on the South Carolina Gamecock schedule. If you're a South Carolina fan, guess what you need to do? You need to head over to our friends at GameTimeSidekicks.com. Me and Chase been showing you all of these just beautiful cups we got here from our friends at Game Time Sidekicks. Let's find the Gamecock portion. Oh, right there. There it is.
There he is.
So if you want to go check it out, you can do that. Officially licensed stainless steel drinkware. All SEC schools represented. Over 350 more universities. They got top of the market quality with the construction, the ice retention, all the logo printing and product decorations done in Knoxville. Tons of designs and logos offered for each school. Even offer the College Vault line. Very few brands have those. Everything from stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, and shaker cups. If you want a deal from your friends here at Southeastern 16 on these tremendous products at Game Time Sidekicks, SE16, SE16. 10% off just because you're viewing this and getting this code from us. So check that out, GameTimeSidekicks.com. You guys let us know. What are your thoughts? Way too early on the South Carolina football schedule for the 2025 season. Give us your early predictions. What do you think are going to be some of those swing games for the Gamecocks? Let us know in the comments below. Appreciate you watching. We'll talk to you soon. Southeastern 16.